Hello everyone, welcome back to Backlog Banter. My name is Tucker Hazell. This is Abram Buehner over here. Abram, for a video game review. Resident Evil Requiem, I believe this is the first time that you and I are... No, actually, we reviewed Resident Evil 4 yonks ago, Abram.
Well,
ages ago.
Yeah, that was
the original Resident Evil 4. Yeah, I think it was. But we're here to talk about Resident Evil Requiem, the newest in the Resident Evil series, and a game that we both really enjoyed, not to lay our cards bare too quickly. But we're here to give our thoughts on the game and kind of how it sits with us, as we're both like really getting into Resident Evil at this point in time. You're like you're shaping into a new person. I hardly recognize you. How do you feel?
I think Resident Evil Requiem is awesome. I think the game is fantastic. I want to just get right into it because I feel like a lot of reviews, especially for a game like Requiem, which is I think being talked about by a lot of hardcore Resident Evil fans as like, oh, it is this big fan service throwback Metal Gear Solid 4 type of thing. And for a certain type of person, I'm sure it is that. I don't think either of us are that type of person. So
no, because neither of us are historied enough with Resident Evil to like really be hit by those things.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm a fan as of like 2020. I played Resident Evil 2 remake, I think. So I don't have like these long-standing roots that people are like, oh my god, it's Mr. X.
Well, my thing is also like, I'm not stupid. Like, yeah, I remember Resident Evil 2 remake. Like, I remember going into the like I was, that was 7 years ago. But like, I'm clear enough headed to remember 2019. Mm-hmm. But I think to me. I think that sort of line of conversation to me kind of does a disservice to Resident Evil Requiem, just because I think there's so much great about it that doesn't rely on that. And I would actually argue that some of that like RPD stuff is some of the weakest in the whole game. I
would agree with you. Yeah.
What's interesting for me, Tucker, I guess one of my big contentions about this game is that I feel like I kind of come at it differently than a lot of people do, not only from that point of view, but from the point of view of preferring the Leon side of the game, which is not a criticism of the Grace side of the game, but just to say that I think that the Leon side of the game is specifically very interesting and specifically interesting in ways I didn't anticipate. But my high level thoughts on this game is that it's just phenomenal. And I will say, as a quick sidebar, I played on Switch too.
That's
great way to play the game, except sometimes in handheld mode gets so blurry I had to dock it. You know that part where you're playing as Leon and you're covering Grace and Emily,
and she's taking forever to fucking open that door.
Taking forever to open the door. I started that sequence in handheld mode. Yeah, my parents are watching TV or whatever. And I was looking through the sniper scope, and I was like, I actually can't really tell where the zombie is. So then I had to dock it for that. But I would say that like 95% of the time, wonderful in either mode of play, and in TV mode I would say indistinguishable. I know it's distinguishable, but if you're not like doing a side by each, you didn't play the other version, so you would never know that it's like a worse version of the game. I think it's tremendous on Switch, but that's just my 30-second sidebar on that version of the game, which I think is great.
The Switch 2 version, but and it is also very meaningful that it's great. Is because I would say that this is the first meaningful day-and-date major AAA cross-platform release on Nintendo that, like, in, like, not my literal waking life, but since I've been paying attention to Nintendo, like, at best, you get it 3 months later. At normal, you get it 18 months later when you're getting a port for a Nintendo system. Or they're 6 years later or something like that. The amount of AAA support that even on Switch, which had decent AAA support, Capcom is from day one all in. Of course, they had a couple games released last year, but with this and Pragmata and Monster Hunter Stories 3, they're just like boom, boom, boom. I would not be surprised if Onimusha Way of the Sword releases day and date coming out later this year. Like cool. They're doing the damn thing, and the fact that it's great is also one of those other things of like sometimes we would get it or we get it close or whatever, and it'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, it's like a way to play it, but you're like, realistically, you're not gonna. And so this is like, you and I talked a couple times last year about like, how are we going to feel about Switch 2 AAA support, third-party support? This is that first like strong nail of like, okay, we're building something here that hopefully can stick around and hopefully can maintain consistency, but you got to start somewhere, and Resident Evil Requiem is definitely that like strong first foundation for AAA support.
Yeah, and I'll just say, then we'll get into the actual game because this is not germane to the game really, but like there was when I played Star Wars Outlaws last year on Switch, I was like, okay, yeah, this is great, and I couldn't hold it against it for not being day and date. That game came out 18 months before this system even came up or whatever. But getting this right away. It's not like it's a family game. It's not like getting the Lego,
Yep.
the Switch version
Yeah.
Lego game right away. It's Resident Evil, and it's fucking great. So let's and it's also because I was worried because the only other example, because we were talking about this on WhatsApp, is like maybe Chronos last year.
Oh, sure.
But that game looked horrible on Switch too.
Did it? Okay,
and I was like, well, maybe we're just totally fucked. But it just turns out they probably didn't have enough time.
That's probably true. Yeah,
probably was true. But where do you want to actually start with Requiem?
I think that what impresses me most about Resident Evil Requiem is a high level thought.
Sure.
And I think it's what's really gonna stick with me about this game because I love the gameplay, I like the story, I like the characters a lot. We'll get into all that, but I think that Resident Evil Requiem is one of the smartest culminations I've ever seen of a long-standing video game franchise.
Sure.
Because I think Resident Evil is a series that has evolved a lot over the course of its history, and it's developed this interesting fractured fan base where people grew up and have very passionate histories with very different kinds of games that are literally within the same lineage, but design-wise, tonally, Resident Evil is a number of different things. It is, and this game, and why I think it's so smart, is it brings all of that into conversation to make a game that is not only a culmination of its own series and its different design philosophies over the course of 30 years, but it brings together in conversation design elements and tones that most games aren't willing. Like this is a ballsy game to do, a game that's half action, half horror, and like cuts dramatically between those. It's ballsy to have a game that's half first person, half third person. That barely ever happens in video games. But it's because Resident Evil has established its own history with different elements. You have split playthroughs that are since the first game with Chris and Jill. You have the horror and the action tones of Resident Evil. That it's that sort of Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6 split versus the older games. You have first person and third person, which is that split of like since 7 and 8 we've introduced first person. And then in this game they're just like, all of these are very interesting and have made a number of great games. There are great horror Resident Evil games, there are great first person, third person action games. What if Resident Evil is actually all of that, and it's all of that in one package, and we're bouncing back in between them, and we're bringing together new storylines and old storylines, and it's well balanced and well paced because you're able to get moments of heightened horror and heightened action. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this. I'm like, oh my god, it's so smart to like take this series that has been so many different things and be like, let's actually build it all up into one very strong pillar that incorporates all these things that different fans like. And I think it's one of those games where I literally think, no matter what kind of Resident Evil fan, there's something here for you. People say that about a lot of games, but I'm like, this is one where like, I think that's the intention. And I think they really, really nailed that.
Yeah, it's funny because I sort of like, I agree and disagree, but I don't disagree in the sense of criticizing. Because I don't think that the game is very...
Criticizing?
What I mean is like, I don't think the game is coherent, really.
Oh, okay.
I think that there's like the end of part 1 effectively before you go to Raccoon City. Yeah. And in my opinion is like as close to making no sense as you can possibly get away with.
With Grace blowing up the lab and getting in the...
With like fucking Zeno shows up. Who the fuck is this guy? Yeah. Grace is going off with Gideon, who like drugged and kidnapped her, and like...
Yeah, we'll talk about the narrative.
Like Leon shot Emily, but not in her vitals. Like, it's not coherent, I don't think. Sure. And I don't think that... And I think that there's like something... There's like a real sense of incongruity even to like some of the ideas that the Leon half introduces in terms of like, oh, per kill you get points, you can spend the points in your little box. Sure. But I think that it's like not hugely important for the game to be coherent, because I think that it's just really cool. I think my takeaway about Resident Evil 9 is the game is very cool. And I think that hype and aura and coolness for me goes a very long way. And I think that when you sort of, for me, I pair that.
Yeah, the like iRobot memes, like, do we have good writing? Yes. Like, no, we have hype and aura. But instead of Will Smith being like, he's like,
yeah, but he's smiling.
Yeah, sweet.
Because I think that this is insert
an image from, I don't know, Hitch. I'll make that later.
There we go. Yes, thank you very much. I think that the game is so good at sort of walking you into interesting and fun and involving set pieces or ideas that ultimately I'll take any pretense to get to them. It's really doesn't weigh heavily on my heart or my mind that I think that the game makes almost no sense. And that is probably different if you like know or care about the lore and all of this shit, but I don't really. And I don't think you need to.
I'm aware that the Umbrella Academy exists, but I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, they made some zombies, I'm pretty sure.
Let me hit you with a big claim here as well.
Sure.
I don't actually think the two halves of this game are as far apart as they've sort of taken on the reputation for being in the discourse.
Okay.
And what I mean is, obviously, like I just said, that there's a sort of a different set of mechanics and structures between the two, 100%. But also, like, there's a fucking guy in a bulldozer who, like, crashes through a wall in the Rhodes Hill Care Center, and you gotta shoot him and blow up his bulldozer. And, like, Grace, in my view, is not, like, an incompetent person. And I think that the crafting ammo and the tools she has available to her, and the relative stupidity of the AIs in Rhodes Hill means that I don't actually feel that scared by the game most of the time.
Okay, sure.
And like, from that point of view, I think there's a lot of like catharsis and empowerment to being Grace. Yes, the cutscenes tell me, oh, she's sweaty and freaking out and like afraid of Gideon and there's a big problem. I get that. But then I take control again, and I'm like, oh, well, here's a blister head. I'm going to shoot him in the head with the Requiem, and I'm going to be fine.
Sure.
By the time I took over as Leon in the attic and went through Rhodes Hill, I'd killed every zombie with like two exceptions.
Really? Wow.
As Grace.
Okay.
And I was playing on the normal, standard, regular difficulty mode.
Yeah.
I don't think that the game convinces me that the first half is scary. I think it's got some spooky guys. Some gross, icky guys.
Sure, yeah.
But I actually sometimes felt myself more scared as Leon, because I think that his enfeebled state is conveyed through the gameplay more effectively than Grace's timidity. Not only when like you're in the arc and your screen's all purple and woozy and you can't aim all the time, but even just the fact that like a lot of the combat encounters, I'm thinking about one of that first ones in Raccoon City where the guys come up out of the ground, catch Leon off guard. Like, this is a Leon who's, like, on the back foot a lot of the time. This is a Leon who is, like, a fucking guy with a Mad Max helmet and a flaming chainsaw. And I'm, like, shooting him over and over again. I'm like, please, God, don't let him touch me. Or cut me in half hot dog instead of hamburger.
Yeah, hot dog style, yeah.
Like, I just think that there's a part of this game that kind of evens out the scales in terms of scares, and I think is a lot better at selling me on the idea that Leon is not at the top of his game than that Grace is that like incompetent or timid or frightened. That's my biggest claim about Resident Evil 9.
Yeah, I mean you put forward a lot there. I'm not. I think I kind of agree with you.
Yeah.
I also agree that's not an issue.
Yeah.
I think. This is a weird element of me and horror, which is one of my favorite genres in both film and games.
Sure.
Is that I'm almost never scared by things, and so I think I always take the writing and tone at face value, even if it's not reflected in my experience. Is when I'm Grace, I'm like, I've played enough video games. I know that when I turn the corner, the guy's gonna continue on his path and walk that way, so I can just wait for a couple seconds and dodge around him. I know that the AI is planned for people to be kind of like on the back foot and like be timid. So if I just book it, I'll be fine and I can pass them. Like, I play my horror games with a sense of security because I understand the mechanics, and I'm also, emotionally, I'm not like, oh God, a zombie. I'm like, yeah, it's a fucking video game zombie. Like I'm built different when it comes to horror games. And so I think the where I would disagree, I agree with you that I was not super scared by Grace's parts, and I do think that they do a pretty good job of giving Leon this kind of like John Wick 4 almost, like, he's bruised and battered kind of quality to him. But I think that pacing-wise, audio-wise, environment-wise, performance-wise, I don't think it's as clean cut as the game's split. Or I don't think it's as harmonious as maybe you're trying to present in the initial case.
I think it's more, to be clear, that I don't think it's so hard line. This is the scary part. Sure. This is the not scary action over the top part.
Yeah, but I mean, I do think that almost everything in the game conveys that in terms of Grace's performance, her animations, literally the writing, obviously, the physicality of both the characters, the approach that the zombies, the weapons you have access to, the lighting of the different areas. Like, when you're in Rhodes Hill and you're Grace, it's dark and it's quiet and there are loud sounds and bright red lights. And then when you're Leon, you're out in the sunshiny streets of a desiccated city. Like, I do think that it like the environments and the tone and the writing and the performances of the game convey that. I'm not saying on an experience level I felt they were like worlds apart, but like that's definitely the intention by like the creative team.
Yeah, I'm sure
to create this like this really wide swinging back and forth.
Yeah, I don't disagree with their intention. I guess I just don't think that the execution sells that entirely. And because another contention I have about Resident Evil broadly is like Resident Evil 4 is a horror game. Like I don't agree. I appreciate that it's an action game, but the idea that horror is not always about as malleable as possible is sort of specious to me. I mean, action is horror, sci-fi is horror. You can have horror over anything. And so, like, for me, you know, when I'm in Rhodes Hill, there's two parts of my brain going off. One part of my brain going off is as you are saying, this is a dimly lit place. This is a place where I got to do all this work with my pistol and my Requiem, and that's what I have. I'm being told through the performance that Grace is like afraid. I'm not saying that's not in its own way effective. But I think that this game, it really goes out of its way to make it pretty easy to get around. And to me, that's not a negative, because I think that the Rhodes Hill place is so interesting. I like that there's a gambling parlor in there. I like that there is this whole weird, like fucking freaky dungeon under it. Like, there's a lot that's very interesting about Rhodes Hill, and so I like being in there. But I've been playing Resident Evil 1 Remake also. And I think something that's really interesting about Resident Evil 1 is that the hallways in that game are about as wide as you and the zombie. And so there's a real imposing sense to that game when you encounter just one single zombie. I'm like, okay, well, this is a big deal. This is a problem I gotta sort out. When I'm Grace and I'm in there, and all the zombies are sort of ambling towards me very slowly, very, very easily, it's not that hard for me to kill them. It's also not that hard for me to walk around them. I think that that there are ways in which the actual game playing undercuts what they're trying to do with the art and what they're trying to do with the animation. But I don't subscribe to the idea that Resident Evil is locked into the mode of horror or the mode of action. And there's also the humor that is sort of overarching all of it. And so I think that for me, the reason I raise this is just because I think that there's, from my point of view, there's a lot of like, sort of like pre-agreed on takes about this game. There's the horror part, there's the action part. Grace is afraid, Leon is a badass. I think all of that's true to an extent, but I just don't agree that the actual playing reaffirms what the story is telling me.
Yeah, I think you're off base with that one. I mean, just like, especially from the difference of the combat. And I think that that's where I feel the game is at its biggest odds.
Sure.
I want to talk about the early back and forth of the game, because I think that for me, it's got a good opening. I think it's got a good opening hour or whatever that is. But until you're let loose in Rhodes Hill, I think it's fine. I think it's a solid enough game, but I'm not like jonesing for any particular element of it. I think that my biggest contention with this game, and it's not big enough to make it a major criticism, I still enjoyed these parts, but it's that I think that the two long sections of the game, Grace in Rhodes Hill and Leon in Raccoon City, those are like leaps and leaps and leaps beyond my favorite sections of the game.
I agree.
By like a crazy margin.
Yeah.
To the point that I almost have a hard time remembering the like shorter interstitial back and forth moments. Like I'm like you can describe them to me. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that was good. That was fun. But the opening in the city with Grace and going to the actually, I would say that's maybe like, you know, third or fourth on my list of like pretty good section, good section of the game. I do like exploring this dilapidated hotel, like the lighting and
I think that's
the
really
environment
good.
of direction in that area is quite excellent.
And the doors swinging open and the notes left for you and the pictures of Grace.
Yeah.
I think those are really great, strong horror touches where there's
Yeah.
some kind of force that neither you nor Grace understands that is sort of preempted your arrival in this place where people are dying in strange ways. I think that the beginning is really good, but I agree with you in the main that a lot of the short sections are pretty weak.
Yeah, and that to me is where I do feel that really strong back and forth, because you get thrown from, especially at the beginning of the game, Grace without a weapon, without much knowledge, no experience with any kind of heightened situation like this, except for the death of her mother that we come to know later, to Leon running through the streets and picking up a chainsaw off the ground and like slicing through guys. I'm like, that to me, gameplay wise, is that what a lot of people are saying about this game, where I would say I would agree, is like this boom back and forth, like totally different tonal juxtaposition of two different characters who have worlds different experience with this kind of thing. And you can feel it in the gameplay when you are Leon and you've got the Requiem and you're blasting them with one shot and you're picking up a chainsaw and like doing backflips and parrying shit and stuff. I'm like, this is, to me, and this is why I think this game is so exciting and interesting, that is two different games, right? That's the ballsiness of like, most horror games wouldn't want to quote unquote rip you out of that tension, that horror experience of being comparatively helpless and in a space with very little understanding of what's going on and low health and low weapons and stuff like that, and then dropping you into like killing 10 guys and you're parrying shit and backflipping and doing one-liners and stuff. That is like, that's a mode of design and tonal experience that people don't usually experiment with. And that's why I think this game is so bold, to really combine these things of, and maybe it's because I feel, I do feel that there is this difference, not a massive difference, but between the appeals of different Resident Evil games, and why I think 4 is a good game, and I especially really like 4 Remake, but the action Resident Evil is significantly less interesting to me. I think its elements in this game are probably my favorites, action Resident Evil moments, but games like the first half of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 7 and some of the best sections of Village, that is what Resident Evil is to me. And so being able to bring it into conversation with the games, that the action side of Resident Evil that I'm personally less invested in, I think it like eases me more in, where I'm like, okay, well now I kind of care a little bit more about Leon. I really liked Requiem, and so maybe I'll go and replay 4, and maybe I'll like that a little bit more. Maybe play 5 and 6 and like get a little bit of a into the tone of that. I think this game sits at sort of the nexus point of all the appeals of Resident Evil, and if you like this game, I think it sets you up in a stronger way, no matter what angle you came at it from, to then fractal off into going back and checking out the horror versions or the action versions and being like, okay, I've got this kind of a touchstone for this. And I think that's really, really smart, especially as they start balancing and releasing more and more games.
Yeah, I mean, did you do Grace in first person and Leon in third person?
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
I didn't.
What did you do?
I did everything in third person.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Because this is also informing my experience too, for sure.
Sure.
This is what happens when you start giving people too many options.
Yeah.
You have to start accommodating people like me who are going to come and say something about your game that 95% of people aren't going to agree with.
Yeah.
But you know, it's funny actually. I was watching the Kyle Bosman delayed input from a couple weeks ago where he talks about Resident Evil Requiem's big sales, and there's like a press release that Capcom put out, and they cite the ability to play the game in first or third person as a reason for its huge success. Yeah. And I think that's
probably true.
I think that is probably true, and I think that is an odd way to imagine the success of this game, or an odd factor to attribute some of that success to. But I think it's probably Correct, because I ultimately this game is very accommodating. I think that's another thing that's interesting about it. Again, going back to Resident Evil 1, obviously a gulf of time between these games, of course. But also the puzzles in this game are pretty easy.
No, yeah. The puzzles are the weakest part of the game, I think.
Yeah, the puzzles are pretty easy. You never really have to worry about resources, especially in Grace's side. I found myself with literally 100 rounds of handgun ammo at certain points.
Oh wow, yeah.
You can go first person, you go third person. To your point about it casting a wide net, it's certainly made to do that. Yeah, and I think that that's fine. I think that it is a big blockbuster game, and that's part of what makes it work. And again, that's just why I view things on the Grace side slightly differently, because I think it still has this very accommodating feeling to it. Sure. But to me, that is, again, not an issue, because all right, I'm a little bit less afraid here. I'm a little bit less tense about how I'm spending my bullets and spending my blood that I can use to craft. I'm not worried about that so much. So what am I doing instead? Well, for me, part of what I'm doing is appreciating this sense of place, and I think that the sense of place is very critical to Resident Evil, and that's why, to me, there's another sort of disjunction in the game. For me, loving Rhodes Hill a lot, and then finding Raccoon City to be largely uninteresting as a place.
Sure,
I think it serves to sort of set up a lot of fun, at times almost like saw trap feeling encounters and ambushes get sprung on Leon. But like, it's kind of fucking ugly. It's kind of an ugly place to be in. And now, obviously, that's the point, right?
Yeah.
But I'm also playing a video game, right? So you can make your irradiated, bombed-out city maybe a little bit more interesting than these, like, empty buildings I'm in. Because I just think that the Rhodes Hill and the, it's called, like, the fucking Roosevelt Hotel. And that's a real hotel, so it's not called that. But the hotel you go to first.
Yeah.
Very dank. It's got a really great feel to it.
Sure.
And so in a lot of the Grace sections, a lot of what I'm doing is like almost just appreciating this place and wondering, to my earlier point, like, why are these two girls in this basement here?
Yeah.
Why are they doing a little roulette spinning in this place over here? What's going on with this? And I think
Rhodes Hill as the centerpiece of this game, it's easily the strongest section of the game for me, and it might be in contention with, again, my other favorite Resident Evil moments sections games, the Baker House from 7, RPD from 2, Castle Dimitrescu from 8. These are my favorite places, some of my favorite places in video games, because you get to know them so well. And I think where Rhodes Hill is so interesting, it's like, okay, I've been in hospitals and games before, but I think what makes it a step above in terms of a unique sense of place is that it's a chronic care center, which means that people are living here, which means that it has this basically split 100% down the middle homey aspect, like a hotel, almost like a lavish, like parlors and diners and stuff like that, or dining rooms and things, and then like clinical study test tubes and computers and stuff in the other half. And the way that the game is paced and structured in terms of the keys that you get and unlocking different doors, you're bouncing back and forth between them. And you have kind of this neutral zone in the middle where you're totally safe. I don't actually think that almost any enemies can get in there.
I don't think so, because some people have chased me to the door.
Yeah. And they just leave.
I think they just,
And so you're bouncing back and forth between these warm tones and the singing zombies, which are kind of mechanically interesting. We'll talk about that. And then going to like the darker, more clinical side of the lab. And I really think that that's really unique, because most places that you're going to explore in a video game are going to be one or the other. It's going to be Spencer Mansion, and of course, there's labs like beneath Spencer Mansion, but this is like a place that is designed to be that. And I really loved exploring this place, because I didn't know when I opened a door what was going to be on the other side. Is it going to be like hospital-y? Is it going to be like a reception desk and computer monitors and medicine cabinets and things? Or is it going to be a place that people are living, and it actually seems like kind of a nice place to be. And I really thought that was a fascinating balance that makes it such a distinct and memorable place.
Yeah, and I really like your point about how the map is designed and the way that it encourages you to make these many laps through the place. Mm-hmm. And this is obviously very classic. This is always the Resident Evil bread and butter. Back to, as you're saying, the Spencer Mansion. This is like this is what Resident Evil is. It's being in this place and crisscrossing it and slowly opening it up. And yeah, I would probably say that this is probably my favorite place in any Resident Evil game. Sure. Just because of that juxtaposition, as you're saying, but then also the fact that it's also a secret third thing when you go to retrieve the helicopter keys and you end up down in this fucking crazy like research area. Yeah. It's
and there's the dungeon underneath where you're being chased by the girl, and there's it's like a prison. It's like a mine and a prison at the same time. That is fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's very, I think, authentically good at surprising you with the places you can go. And I really I appreciate that a lot because the Raccoon City, obviously there is some of that interconnectivity, and you start to, as you do in any Resident Evil game, go up to the door, jiggle the handle. Oh, this door is locked from the other side. Yeah, so,
I can't wait to come to the other side.
Go around and open it, and you open up the pathway. But I just think that there's a less sort of memorable quality because there's sort of the discrete areas you have to go for the detonator pieces going into the apartment building.
They feel like levels. Where no part of Rhodes Hill feels like a level.
Yeah,
necessarily.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think, man, I don't even want to use the word gamey, but there's always a feeling in Rhodes Hill of like this place is designed with its function, I think, almost foremost. The form is also just very good, but there's a part of me that plays Resident Evil games like, okay, well now I gotta find the little thing that fits in this fucking cubby hole, and maybe I gotta combine it with another thing, and then you fucking twiddle the little puzzle thing and you open it up and here's the next item, you put it in the door. Resident Evil has no interest clearly in escaping that style of game making, but to your point about the puzzles being weaker in this one, I think it just maybe feels a little bit more overt in Rhodes Hill of
sure,
not that my time is being wasted because I'm playing a game that I have a lot of fun with, but there's a part of me that's like, okay, well I can clearly tell that you're trying to keep me around this hotel a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. Or maybe the artifice of it is maybe not as appealing. Time to go get the security band level 3 instead to replace your security band level 2. But there are still some very, I think, affecting and effective things sort of layered on top of this. Get the wristband, get the cube,
get the 3 fucking cubes to open the back door to the thing. What?
Yeah.
Huh?
You gotta accept some of this stuff. But I really liked finding the artificial lungs and the artificial heart.
Oh, that was great. Yeah.
And
then he wakes up and attacks you.
And then you immediately kill him. But I'm like, well, could I have not just cut his arm off and taken this thing? So I've been thinking about that. Not to CinemaSins, a fucking Resident Evil game, but there's a part of me that's like, was there a way to do this clever stuff 15% more clever?
More cleverer,
more cleverer. I think maybe, but
no,
again,
I think so. But that's the interesting thing about Resident Evil is it creates this decently believable tone, especially in these explorable places. You believe that Rhodes Hill or the Baker House or Spencer Mansion are places that people live. They do a great job with set dressing, and I think. But then, of course, there's also the Resident Evil stuff of like, why would the fucking door be locked with a turning a statue 90 degrees? Like, there's all this nonsense. But why? I think this is, for me, the strongest thing that Requiem has in terms of introducing something to the series, and this is ostensibly it's exclusive to Rhodes Hill, is the idea of whatever T-virus has been released being new and being smarter to the point that the enemies that you are facing in Rhodes Hill are largely one of one.
Yeah,
it is cool this zombie that is placed here because they died here and their job was this. And so we are going to maintain some of their personality, slow it down with this sort of zombiness, but we're going to give each one distinct voice lines and a distinct pattern throughout the area and a interaction set with the environment
Yeah.
to where they do feel largely like people, like one-of-one enemies. My favorite enemy in the whole game is this one zombie that is obsessed with the light switch in this dark room, and he walks back and forth, and he just goes and fucks the light switch a little bit. And it's so rare outside of like a flickering light bulb in a game. Okay, I've done that plenty of times. But for something to be turning on and off the lights in sort of this irregular pattern.
Yeah.
And I can hear him, and he's like, light, and he's messing with the light switch. And I'm like, that's just, I've never experienced something like that in a game where the believability of this one distinct enemy and its pattern and its role that you can kind of environmentally tell what he was doing, why he was here before. There's a storytelling level to the enemy placement and their physical design and the clothes they were wearing and the lines that they're saying that makes Rhodes Hill come to life in a way that it's obviously very challenging to do. I think this is a sort of technical and writing and compositional marvel to really nail this as they did. But like, you know, I don't know who any of the zombies in the Spencer Mansion were. Why are they there? What they're wearing, I'm like, like it doesn't really gel. At least, you know, it's been a while since I played that game. But like, I think that this is what Requiem does, where I'm like, they can't go back from this. They have to incorporate something of this in future games because it's like, it's so impressive that they were able to achieve this.
Yeah, it's this sort of feeling of like, yeah, I'm in their place.
Yeah.
And I think it helps also unite, as you were saying, the two very distinct aesthetics of this place, that you sort of understand what these people were doing here. And you know, it's like you think about Resident Evil 2 and thinking about boarding up the windows and trying to stop them from getting in is like a Assault on Precinct 13 sort of feeling of like, this is my place. I need to keep these guys out of it. Requiem is sort of trading on sort of the inverse of like, this is their place, I need to get out of it. And I think that is cool. I think where I differ from you a little bit is that I don't actually think that it's that novel in terms of changing how you play the game. I think that it adds a lot to sort of cultivating a sense of mood and place in Rhodes Hill. Yeah. But I would say, other than the sort of opera singing zombie who can shriek so loud that like your ears start ringing and you can't, your aim goes all woozy, or the butcher who just walks around with a big cleaver and can cleave you in half because that's like his whole job or was in life. A lot of the zombies are like kind of doing interesting things, but don't attack you in interesting ways.
I think that's probably true.
They mostly just ambush straight at you, and as has been the tradition in Resident Evil for a long time, you get them a couple times in the head, you stun them, you go over and you have a knife, but the most effective thing with Grace is knock them over, shoot them more in the head, and then they're dead. That's sort of very repeatable. And that's a very clear difference between her campaign and Leon's campaign, insofar as that there is absolutely many different types of zombies attacking you in Leon's side, and they sort of ask you to respond to them in different ways. Whether it's the ones that have the big like fucking makeshift staffs that are coming at you, whether it's the actually differently mutated zombies, whether it's the one in the BSAA gear that you have to shoot the helmets off of first. Like there's a lot of work being done there, which is certainly more necessary on Leon's side of things for the more action side of there's almost like a puzzle quality at times to Leon's side, like playing a Hotline Miami or a Super Hot of like, first I get this guy, then that guy, and then that guy to get through. Grace doesn't have that, and so that's another reason why on a playing level I felt more tension on Leon's side, because I actually died as Leon a number of times. I never died as Grace except for one hit, like insta kill stuff, like the butcher getting a little too familiar with him and he cuts me in half. But actually, I did die a number of times trying to get through Leon's encounters.
Before we get to Leon, I want to respond to that because I think that's a great point, and I think that might be why for me I was more impressed with the way that they designed the enemies in Rhodes Hill, is because it's a different value that they're placing on designing these enemies. The combat encounters are largely the same. You're right. You shoot them a couple of times in the head and they're down. The onus on design then is placed on what they are doing before they attack you. And I think that, to me, makes them feel more distinct because they don't fit as neatly into categories. I think I like the combat a lot in Leon's side, and we'll talk about that. But you can tell me the mechanic of what these different characters do, how they attack you, attack patterns, weapons they're holding, armor values that they hold. And I'm like, great. There's some very cool and distinct enemy types in Leon's larger section of the game, but they neatly fit into like, tanky character, projectile guy. Like, I've faced these kind of enemies in plenty of games before, but what I haven't faced in a game before are enemies that combat-wise are quite the same, but experientially, I do feel like attack. I really love the ones that were like cleaning ladies or maids in the previous life, and they get obsessed with like rubbing the blood on the floor, and then they like stumble up from that, and then they like go like they slip on the blood a little bit and come towards you. And of course, again, you're just gonna shoot them in the head. It's really like about how their head is moving. That's like that's the puzzle. That's the like what makes them a different kind of enemy. But experientially, I do feel like seeing an enemy in their environment, seeing that the way that they then leave that environment to be obsessed with me and come attack me, I feel a lot more variety in that than and also it helps that a lot of them are like distinct design wise. Like, okay, that's this one in this clothes that's only in this room. But I find a value in that, and this is one of the areas where obfuscation of mechanic and comparative simplification of mechanic, I think, can sometimes be a boon, where I feel less like I'm playing a game where these are enemy types, more to the point where you're saying I'm in their space. These were these people, as opposed to Leon's campaign, where I'm like, yeah, it's the dry ones that come out of the ground. That's that enemy type. If there was a Mario game, that would be dry bones, right? Like you can like one-to-one draw these comparisons, and it's just a different value of design that I think surprised me a lot more in Rhodes Hill.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're pointing me towards is maybe how I would classify the different halves of the game, which is that I would classify the appeal for me of the Graces side of things, what I'm experiencing, what I'm uncovering, where I'm going. The Leon side for me is about is about the doing. I think the doing is more interesting for me as Leon.
Yeah.
Which is not a value judgment on either side, even though, like I said, I just based on how I play games, the type of games I like the Leon side more. But the Graces side to me had a great degree, as you're saying, to boil down what you're saying and to not mean this in a reductive way, a great sense of novelty in the Graces side. I think that does a lot of heavy lifting and why I'm quite positive on the game as a whole, even if I might find the actual interactions in that side less interesting. Like another good example for me is the big boss Chunk.
That's great. Yeah, I love that enemy.
He's
squeezing through the hallways and like bumping his head on the ceiling and stuff. I'm like, that's great stuff.
Yeah, he very much to me like typifies why that section is interesting to me and why in some ways it's less interesting than the other one, because you can kind of just let him do his own thing. Like he never actually was a threat to me actually in any way.
He blocks off areas. You're like, okay, I can't go that hallway now. I gotta find a way around.
but the effective quality he brings is the sort of lumbering footsteps and the growling and all of this. Which in the background while I'm going about my business, filling up my little blood bag or doing whatever I need to be doing, does heighten the sense of Rhodes Hill that I have.
Sure.
And I mean, but let's talk a little bit about Leon's side and talk a little bit about what he has to do. I think that, Leon's side is where I was really chafing a little bit against how odd or sort of how uninterested the game is sometimes in obfuscating anything. You're talking about obfuscating what the zombie's doing in Rhodes Hill. Well, here it's like, fuck it. You got to get through a little gate, and the only way of doing that is to go all over to find 3 different parts of a bomb detonator in 3 different Pelican cases in 3 very different places.
Yeah.
That's not that great, in my opinion. But it's sort of made less of an issue for me, to the point of almost being a non-issue, because I appreciate how it feels like every encounter in the game, because even though there's some backtracking, there's a lot less of it. There's a lot of opportunity to craft very specific combat encounters.
Yeah.
That you encounter.
It's a set piece section.
Yeah. It's one set piece after another. Maybe they don't all call attention to themselves the way that like the pretty goofy motorcycle wolves section is, which is not very good.
No, I don't like it that much. Yeah.
But, you know, being first in this shipping container warehouse where you're in these more narrow corridors, you can't really see above you too well, and all these zombies come out of the floor. That's great, and that's different.
It's a great moment.
And it's very different than being in the skyscraper tipped at 90 degrees where you have to shoot out the floor panels to drop the BSAA guys. Love it. That sequence, I think, is very illustrative of why this section is good, because then it sort of ups the ante when you start to go up a little bit on that sort of angled walkway you make for yourself by dropping another floor panel, by having BSAA guys with bombs strapped to them start walking down towards you, at you, where you have no place to run because you already destroyed the whole floor.
Sure.
I think that there's very... If all of Grace's encounters are sort of more in service of the believability of Rhodes Hill, this half of the game is very much about saying what just would make for a really, really good fight right now with this locality. And I think the game is really good at answering that question over and over again.
Yeah. The reason I like Raccoon City so much, and why for me, of the action side of Leon that I've played, which is, you know, basically just 4,
well, it's also kind of all it is, right? Other than S6, I guess, which neither of us have played.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. But that's mostly what I was stipulating there. The reason why I like it so much is it is action. It is high combat. You use a lot of ammo. There's a lot of guys. The distinct levels, the stupid overarching get the fucking pieces to put them into the thing, to blow up the thing. All of this is corny, goofy action schlock, but not necessarily in a negative way. But it does maintain enough for me of what I do like about my favorite Resident Evil games and favorite parts of Resident Evil, where you are looping back, where this is one large place. You are unlocking things. You get the key to then go back to open the crates, and those have got some stuff in them. There is this sense of cohesion and progression in the larger sense. That is what I look for out of my Resident Evil games. I walked over and this door needs a key. I'll need to remember to come back there, and then I can, once I got that at the end of this level, I can go back there, unlock that door, and I can go into this extra area. That sense of exploration and place and backtracking is where ostensibly all of my praise and enjoyment from Resident Evil comes. And what I find is, even a game that I like quite a bit, like 4, it loses that basically entirely. Like, you might get one key to open one door in that whole fucking game. Like, you're not staying in an area and backtracking and doing this kind of stuff. It's very much linear, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but for my engagement with Resident Evil, it's something I'm much less interested in. And placing the mechanics and tone and style of a Resident Evil 4 in an environment that structurally is more similar to a Spencer Mansion or a RPD or whatever, that was like, I was like, oh, okay, I am in a city. I am doing crazy Leon things. He's spouting one-liners. I'm in these distinct areas. There's crazy enemies, but it's placed within this context of going back into the street. And I remember coming up here and coming up from the subway and being like, oh, well, okay, that goes right back to here. Like, that appeal is really balanced well in the Raccoon City, bombed out Raccoon City section of the game, where I'm like, this is what I've been missing out of action Resident Evil. And they marry those two styles and tones together, I think, very well.
Yeah, I broadly agree. I mean, I think here's where I might disagree a little bit, actually.
Sure.
And I was trying to put my finger on it, because yes, you're right that there is there's a closeness to the structure of the types of Resident Evil games you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I also think that the one thing that Raccoon City doesn't really have is much of an escalation. Or like a sense of really of coming to master the place, right? Like, I think part of what you come to do to Rhodes Hill is you come to master how you get around it. Mm-hmm. And in my case, you come to master it by also killing all the fucking guys that are in the whole rig, right? Which obviously you do that to Raccoon City, but Raccoon City is interesting because it's largely there in service to transfer us over to a sort of shorter portion of the game, which is the RPD and the orphanage. And so, yeah, I think that it represents something. I don't know. I feel like the structure to me is less interesting than the actual individual encounters, I guess.
I agree with you on like well, I think I'm gonna draw a comparison.
Okay.
To Kirby Superstar Ultra.
Okay.
Where part of the reason why I'm less of a fan of that game than I am other Kirby games is because you're picking things from a corkboard and you just go into the different fucking things. The simple fact that most other Kirby games do, which is you're on a world map and you're going to the level like a Mario game you would. It has an overworld and it contextualizes it just that touch. That touch is how I feel about the backtracking and the sense of place in Raccoon City. Is mostly, yeah, you're right. I'm in the skyscraper level. I'm in the the one where with all the buses in the parking garage is like flooded a little bit. I love that area. I'm for the most time I'm in this in Raccoon City. I am doing distinct, comparatively linear areas. Great, but when I finish that, and I'm able to spend a little bit of time decompressing, collecting a few things, revisiting an area if I want to get a couple extra things, go upgrade myself, visit back to the camp. That sense of the loop, and then spiraling off to do something and returning back to a core. That really meaningfully changes the way that I'm feeling about this, because I get that little rush of finishing level, entering Raccoon City from a slightly different angle, and be like, okay, I'm back here. And that, frankly, makes me care a lot more about these things that you're right. Are distinct, comparatively linear set piece areas, but the things that are stitching them together makes all of it feel so much more harmonious that I think about the section in my mind. I think of Raccoon City, and it's all these little parts that make up this much more interesting whole, rather than what is a lot more, not a lot more of the game, is a lot of the other sections of the games are, this is the part where Leon is going into this thing, and we're going to do this section, and then we're going to go off to the next thing. Like, I don't really care about the orphanage as much. I don't really care about the sniper section as much. I don't really care about the motorcycle chase as much. Yeah. Because those are one thing without a lot of stitch work going to another section.
Well, that's what's interesting about sort of the game as you're kind of on your way out of it, right? Because there is a lot that kind of happens in quick succession there.
Yeah, in the arc, yeah.
In the arc, yes.
And leading up to the arc.
I was really thinking of leading up to the arc because it's the RPD. Yeah. It's the fight against Mr. X, which is fine, but largely unremarkable, as I think all the bosses in this game are.
I would agree,
The orphanage section, which I think is neat. I actually found, if you want to talk, because the orphanage section is a place where the doing is very limited. There's no fighting back against those weird little, or like lobotomized children, like freaky fucking psycho demon children.
Yeah,
I found that like pretty unnerving. I'm not gonna pretend that it's some like big masterful horror scene, but it's cool. But it's also very fleeting. Yeah. I do though think it's sort of a nice touch, and maybe we can talk about the broader story sort of as a jumping off point from this. But I think it's a nice touch. And ultimately, you're just like some random girl there. I was like,
oh, that's Grace.
Is it? That's Grace?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are you sure?
100% positive. That's her like last experience at that orphanage before she gets. Because she's getting raised by Spencer at this orphanage where they're doing all the experiments. It's definitely Grace.
Okay, well then let me reframe this. I think the story in this game is fucking dumb. Yeah, and I can't follow it.
No, I agree with you. I think it's set up in interesting ways, but then when you really like look back on it and the way that it progresses and the way that it ties together, you're like, what? The fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, and this is where I think what's on the page is only so much of the story. The Resident Evil for me is really about how you feel as you're exploring. So the plot is really just pretense to that. But I think this as this pretty sprawling storyline is just like not as able to be as successful standalone as the actual playing of the game is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Because it just ends up feeling like, okay, I bet if I cared a little bit more to know what Mr. Spencer was up to, I would care a little bit more about these Batman versus Superman video files I'm opening on the supercomputer.
Yeah.
But because I don't, I'm kind of like, well, this is sort of diverting, I guess. But where I end up really feeling any sort of rush from the plotting of the game is when it pushes me into interesting on the controller moments of saying, okay, well, the girl snatched Emily, so I have to go down to the fucked up barbarian dungeon, or I need to do, or just like seeing Xeno blow the head off all those BSAA guys and just get the sense of like, okay,
good moment.
This guy's pretty powerful, and like the cutscene direction in this game can be cool if it wants to be. Yeah. But I think most of the time I just sort of have a posture of, well, I don't even really know what's going on here. Because like, what the fuck is who is Xeno? Is he new? And who's Gideon? And what's Gideon trying to do?
Yeah. Well, that's
and who's Elpis?
I think.
I mean, I know what Elpis actually is, but like, I kept playing and going Elpis Prebsley in my head.
Elpis Prebsley, yeah. I think that narratively, my biggest complaint with this game is that there is a first half and a second half in a way that I don't think was necessary, and I think it makes both of them weaker. I think that setting up Gideon and his obsession with Grace and his presence and his performance and him like knowing Leon and Grace and being willing to like trap them in situations, and like he's kind of messing with them a little bit, but he's also like chill enough where he'll like let them go. Like he got this kind of like cat and mouse mastermind kind of thing going on there. I'm like, I actually really do like Victor Gideon. And then we introduce Xeno. I'm like, who the fuck are you? Where have you been this whole game?
He looks like Wesker.
He's a clone of Wesker, yeah. But and then
like why? Never mind. I don't care.
Who the fuck knows? Yeah, I'm sure you can find an answer. And then Xeno gets introduced, and Xeno takes center stage, and Gideon disappears for the arc section of the game because he falls off his fucking motorcycle, and Xeno is he could be narratively interesting, but don't spend enough time with him for us to really care. And all the momentum that I'm feeling of setting up the sort of dynamic between Grace and Gideon, his obsession, is just like it's gone for a third of the game. And then by the time he's like the final boss of the game, I'm like, okay. Like, I think that if you don't have Xeno, and it's all Gideon doing this stuff, and we're able to learn more about him in this last chapter of the game where he's literally gone in the game that we have, I think we would care a little bit more about those four momentum because we've had him established before. Yeah. We would be able to learn a little bit more about the character. I think we'd feel a little more coherent. But instead, they opt to have two villains that I think spending time with both of them detract from the fact that one villain, I think, would have been a more coherent and quote unquote emotionally engaging narrative to follow.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point about what is engaging about what's on the page, and it's not them. Well, what is it then? Because I still did feel engaged. Well, I think it's actually the situations our characters are in.
Yeah, because Grace and Leon are good characters.
They are, and this is where it is functioning metatextually of like, well, Leon Kennedy is like a fucking awesome guy, and I've always known him to be that. Yeah. But he's not here. And he's like cruising towards death. And his one-liners feel a little bit less confident. And he's sure as shit coughing up a lot of blood. And there's a lot of fucking venom symbiote crawling up his body. Yeah. And it's like, well, I care about that.
No. He's turning into Killer Croc from Suicide Squad.
Sure. and so I like that, and I like Grace and Emily's relationship, even though there's what is it built on? I guess sort of the knowledge as a player that like they are both subjected to the same kind of program.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I just have like empathy for the common man because I'm like, I want to get this little blonde girl out of here.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're like trauma bonded or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Whatever. So I find that what the characters are doing is interesting. What the plot and the villains are doing, I don't even really know.
Yeah.
They want a new bioweapon. Aren't there like a million of those? Why do you need this one?
Did you read the thing where it's like all the bioweapons that they sell for different prices?
Yes, which is funny.
I did like that. Little touch.
Yeah. Well, go ahead on that if you want to.
No, we can talk about arc in a bit, but characters, I guess.
Well, I don't know, man. It's like we're some quest for the bestest. I don't fucking know. What do you like? What is there to say about? Oh man, I really was moved by the characters. I don't know. I think for me, it's in the concept. It's in I like Leon, and now he's hurting. We gotta help him.
Yeah. Well, I think that's important though because I like Resident Evil games. Yeah. I played a lot of them, and I like almost all the ones I've played. I actually specifically do not like the protagonists in most Resident Evil games. Sure. There are, of course, 7 and 8. Ethan Winters, I would say, is my least favorite video game protagonist of all time. I fucking hate that.
Okay.
Guy. But I like those games a lot because the situation's cool. The villains are great. Yeah. Lady Dimitrescu, the Baker family, these are iconic. These are interesting characters that I actually, they stick in my mind. I don't fucking like Ethan Winters, though. I also don't personally care for Chris Redfield in Resident Evil 1. Not that big a fan. Don't really care about Jill Valentine. I don't really care about... I like Jill a good amount in 3 Remake. I actually think that down from this, that's like the next one where I'm like, okay, I kind of am interested in this character. I don't really care about... actually, you know what? I don't know too much about Claire because I actually haven't played her side of 2. So I leave that one to the future of me. And I also don't really care that much about Leon in 4. I like him in 2 when he's a rookie and he's kind of on the back foot and he's never been in a situation before. I'm not a one-liners action hero guy with my character. Sure. I don't find much to engage myself with in that. And so part of my major issue with 4 and why it's certainly lower for me is I don't think Leon's a particularly interesting character. He feels like a generic insert. You know, he could be played by Arnold Schwarzenegger and the game wouldn't change that much. But why I think it's important, and for me, a major strength of Resident Evil 9, why it's important to talk about the protagonist, is I like both Grace and Leon in this game because they are much more empathetic, interesting characters. The setup for Grace is a little dumb. It's a little stupid. Whatever, man. Like she's an FBI, a very new FBI agent, and they're sending her by herself to this fucking hotel, and she gets caught up in things. Like, okay, that's like, you know, should have sent someone along with her. Like, it's kind of stupid. But her as a person and the fear that she feels and being out of her element and still being able to maintain her wits and struggle through these things makes me care a lot more about the moment-to-moment fighting of a zombie, of encountering Victor, of encountering Emily, because I get who Grace is as a person. She's intelligent, but she's a scared person. And I think that the like nervousness and tics and stuff, like it's over the top, but like I kind of dig that. Like Resident Evil is over the top. And the characters that we've gotten from previous games are over the top in a way that doesn't make me connect to the world or the situation or the things that they're doing. But Grace does, because she is cartoonishly human. She's cartoonishly afraid for her life. And that emotion, and I think that's part of why Road to Hill works so well for me, even though I think I like Baker House a little bit more, is I'm like, I know Grace is in the situation. She's talking out loud. She's thinking about this situation. Whereas if Resident Evil 4 Leon, or Chris Redfield, or Ethan Winters was in the situation, I don't think I would care as much.
Yeah. That's totally fair. I just don't think any of this is meaningful, really. Which is not to take away from what you're saying, but it's just like, again, my interest in it is broad strokes. It's sure. Grace finds this little girl who is like engineered in the writing lab to be sympathetic and for you to want to rescue her. And Leon is this guy who is built up to be this almost like superhero in video games, mm-hmm. and now he's kind of not. But to me, I don't think like I hear what you're saying about Grace, but it's like, I don't know. It's hard for me to super believe that she's that scared. She's mm-hmm. like she's back in this, like I get that she has this flashback, but I'm like, I don't really care about this whole, oh my God, everything is my fault idea that they try to do with her.
Yeah. To that point though, that's part of why the narrative, and especially the second half of the game, I think is just dumb. Is I'm like, she just like gives up and she just goes along with the villains. And I'm like,
well, this is the other thing, because I think I'm more on board with what you're saying for an earlier portion of the game, but
I agree.
As I'm sitting here talking with you about it right now, I'm like, well, this is like, okay, it's a good Act 1, but Act 1 is one of many acts in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's bookended well, because I like, because to your point of everything Grace has to go through in the game. It is nice in the end that she gets this really like classic Hollywood ending, and like everything mm-hmm. works out okay. And she gets she lives with Emily, and she, she's got the picture of her with Emily next to the picture of her and her mom, and like it's fine. But to me, it's just it's it's undermined by the desire to reorient the story, particularly in the arc, around answering questions that I'm not interested in the answers to, I guess, because I think it comes at the cost of the characters.
No, I completely agree. I think that the narrative is the weakest part of it. I think the characters are good. I would say there are 4 meaningful characters in this game. It's it's Grace, it's Leon, it's Zeno, and it's Victor or Gideon. And I like 3 or 4 of them. So I'm like, that's pretty good odds. I'm not saying that the way that they progress. I think Leon probably gets the best progression
because it's the most clear and it's the most consistent. What he wants, what he needs, and what
he's struggling with.
Yes, it's all very clear, and it all resolves itself in an arc.
Yeah, and whereas especially in the second half of the game, both Gideon and Grace get like things. I'm like, why'd you fucking write it this way? But Leon again is pretty simple. It's straightforward.
Yeah,
I don't care as much about him when he's a line spouting action hero in 4. But when he's kind of on the come down, because he's been doing this a long fucking time, and he's got remnants of T-virus that are infecting him slowly, I'm like, that humanizes him. That's a struggle. It comes off more than it did to me in Resident Evil 4 as kind of like maybe not even a person. Like he was just like a comic book character. And this is like maybe it's a little bit of a front. Maybe he like projects this bravado a little bit to make up for the fact that inside he's still scared rookie Leon, and he's got this sickness that's holding him back, but he wants to put on that facade for Grace. I think that I read a little bit more personality and dynamicism to his bravado in this, because I know that there's this extra layer to him.
Yeah.
Where he is actually there's 2 sides of this Leon, rather than what I've viewed in the past, and especially in the original 4, of a one-dimensional guy.
Well, yeah, because again, if you go back to 4, and this is, I think, a critical difference in why I would agree with you more on being more affected by Leon, I guess, is because in 4, he is really there to rescue the president's daughter, and that is, it's all plot in that game. The character of Leon S. Kennedy is more the avatar Leon S. Kennedy in that game.
Sure.
But here, you're right, because the plot is putting him in a position where he is weak and he is ill, and we not only do we see that, but other characters see that. But then both us and those other characters, like in the arc, as the game is reaching its climax, we see him continue to be the Mr. Quip, but also Mr. Body completely racked by T-virus. So I think that, as you're saying, exposes something more about him. But let's think about the arc a little bit as we're sort of wrapping up, because this is his last major section. I think it's really cool, actually. I really like the arc part. But I've heard of my many friends who finished the game, very split opinions on the arc. What do you think about this part of the game?
Of the 3 major sections of the game, it's easily the weakest, in my opinion. Because it's
but that's very relative for me. Would you say you don't like it?
It's fine. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good enough. Because I like the characters and the gameplay is, fighting lickers and stuff. But it's the most similar to other Resident Evil games, and that's the thing that most disappoints me, quote unquote, about it. Is I'm like, I have been in the fucking labs of a Resident Evil game at the end fighting a giant guy in like 9 games. And so when that was how the game ended, I was a little bit let down, because the other sections to me felt more distinct. And it's also mechanically, when I'm talking about how I'm engaging with the game, the distinctness of the enemies in Road 2, very dynamic and a lot of variety there, in a way that I've really enjoyed. The situations in Raccoon City, you're going through these different sections, you're consistently encountering different kinds of guys, the ones that you shoot and it like lets out like a blood cloud that then turns into other ones into blister heads. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on there. There's like 2 enemy types in the arc, and I don't find either of them particularly fun to fight. I'm like, I need to use the fucking acid bottle. Like, it's fine. But it's straightforward, and it's simple, and to me it feels a little bit rote. Sure. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It's a good section of the game. I'm just like, I feel like I've seen this before.
I like it. I think because there's a third enemy type that I think is actually very novel to fight, which is the
people.
The people.
Yeah.
and Leon having to shoot at guys who are shooting back and not in the way of the BSA zombies randomly firing, but actually having to shoot people and making it like an actual third person shooter for just one, well, really two little encounters. And short encounters. I liked that. I thought that was neat. I also think that this section is better at juxtaposing Grace fragility against Leon's toughness against the Lickers in particular. Having to go through the same room as both of them and approaching it very differently. I'm sure I probably could have expended all of my bullets and all of my Molotovs and all of my acid bottles and all that shit to kill the Lickers as Grace. Yeah. But that felt like a much higher bar to clear than killing the zombies in Rhodes Hills.
Far less resources in the arc.
100%. And so then when it came down to it of, okay, I'm Grace in here. Okay, I need to be careful. Where it's not... Both sections are a shooter, but one section is a more high-octane shooter and one is much more subdued. Now it really was like, okay, this is a stealth section with Grace, and then I'm going back over that same ground, and now it is a big action shootout scene. So I felt like that those sides played off of each other very effectively. Certainly for me, much better than when Leon for like 10 minutes walks around Rhodes Hill, which I think is not very good.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that wasn't given more time.
I thought there'd be more to and fro. I thought there'd be more of that.
Yeah, like make him do a couple back and forth laps, you know?
Yeah.
Like that would have been really quite cool as a way to end that. But the narrative makes these decisions where, like, okay, he's out here and Grace is down here, and like, But I like that. You're right. The sort of, because also by the time you leave Raccoon City, that's the last long section of the game. You're doing a lot more back and forth between the characters. It's more Leon heavy in the second half of the game, just as before Rhodes Hill was more Grace heavy. But the game kind of has this like interesting back and forth. It's like Grace, Leon, Grace, Leon, Grace, Leon, Leon, Grace, Leon, Grace, Leon, Grace. It's this interesting kind of like ebb and flow throughout the game. Yeah. And I think that by the point you get to the very last sections of the game, and you're oscillating between the two of them a little bit quicker, that is, again, it's an interesting way to sort of play with the ideas that Resident Evil is, especially if you play in first person and third person, the ideas that Resident Evil has had discreetly across different entries across the course of 30 years. We're going to fold all these together into a section of the game where you're oscillating between action and horror, first person, third person. You're oscillating between a male protagonist and a female protagonist in little bursts back and forth. That to me is, even if structurally, environmentally, enemy-wise, I'm not like over the moon about the arc section of the game, it is placed through this lens that only Requiem has ever had of, we're going to be swapping things back and forth. We're going to pace it so that you're never in one mental state for too long.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. But I guess part of my thinking on Requiem is that the Requiem we have right now is really awesome.
Yeah.
But is there a Requiem out there that is maybe a little bit more meaningful? Which is not to say that this game is vapid, but I think that there are certainly parts of it that are. Sure, and thinking about the end of it, I think that there is this part of me that's like, well, does Grace by the end amount to much? And I kind of feel like, you know, if we look at the end of the game, Grace is, if you follow Leon's advice, you get the bad ending, which is funny, where Leon just gets his head blown clean the fuck off, and then they don't even play the full credits, and they just say, go back. And you just loop back and do it again. Get the only one actual ending to the game. Mm-hmm. Where it's Leon's gig, and it's Leon is cured at T-Virus, and Leon kills Gideon, and then Chris rescues Leon, and the game ends.
Yeah. I
feel like, Could Grace have not had a really heroic moment? Yeah. Could Grace have not got? Because did Grace just have to be the scared and feeble, like the scared female protagonist the whole time?
Sure.
Could she have not been a little bit more? Because I feel like
the big moment that she gets is when she like is like, no, it's okay, Leon. You can put me up onto this thing. I will go move the crane. Like that's her big moment.
Yeah, and
and then you move the crane, and then you just play as Leon.
and that's I think part of the challenge of a game where you have an unknown protagonist, and then you have one of the most famous protagonists in all of video games that obviously you treat with a ton of reverence because he is deserving of it for his status in that series. But there's just a part of me that's like, is there a version of this game that more effectively and regularly bounces between the characters?
Sure.
That then makes sure that they both feel like they are important to the story by the end of it.
No, I agree of the end. I think that they are balanced pretty well going up to that. But yeah, like I'm actually, let me know how you thought of this. I'm surprised Leon's not dead. I think that, well, because you're gonna want to make more Leon stuff, but narratively and legacy wise, I think that this is one of those legacy sequels, because it kind of is, where so much of the game is built up to strengthening Grace, because she is more confident by the end of the game. She's gone through some stuff, and weakening Leon through the virus, and by the end of the game you're stumbling around, you can't shoot as well and stuff like that. That giving him the cure at the end of the game, and he's been a protagonist of fucking video games for almost 30 years, is like it to me it's a little too Hollywood. You mentioned that the like everything coming up sunshine and daisies for Grace, but I think it's almost more so for Liam. Where I'm like, I think that Grace kind of earned that, being just a normal person who went through all this shit and did her goddamnedest. Leon beat the boss, as he's done many times in many games, but it was Grace, her history with Gideon, her history with her mother, her history with Spencer, her history with Umbrella, that ultimately is what, like, her heroic moment is making the decision in the canon ending to release Elpis, and with that comes the sort of, that was the last sort of redemptive act that Spencer did, and she was the one that made that decision. No other character would have made that decision. That's her big moment, but it is, you get the moment where you can choose, are you gonna which button are you gonna press on the fucking keyboard, but it's not, it doesn't feel as action heavy, especially because you know, she has to choose the good ending ultimately.
Like, there's not even a boss. There's not even a final boss. There's not even a credit song. Like, it's obvious. There's obvious that these aren't equal endings. Yeah,
so I do wish that there was maybe you beat the boss as Leon, and then you have to do some sort of section where you're like, he's like really battered, and Grace like drags him out and like saves him that way instead of Chris's goons fucking like roping into the top. Like, I do think that like some playing as Grace, even if she's not, I don't want her carrying a fucking bazooka. I don't want her like doing a big actiony Resident Evil ending. But I think a playable sequence where she saves Leon would have made that dynamic a lot more meaningful.
Yeah, or even let her have the action sequence. Leon tosses her the shotgun, and she has to kill Gideon because Gideon kidnapped her, and she needs to like. There is a degree which I understand that this is like. I'll just say it anyway. This is a video game in this long soap opera nonsensical fucking sci-fi horror series.
Yeah,
Leon's not gonna die. Yeah. The fact that this game basically reverts us to a status quo of Leon is totally healthy again and this new protagonist is basically out of the picture is like not surprising to me in the slightest. And it's how this was inevitably going to go. It's not to undercut what you're saying, because I 100% agree that if you're looking at Requiem as something with a little bit more integrity and a little bit more of a point, then you have to do this. But that's not what this game was ever going to be. And so for me, I'm like, the version of that you're spelling out is the one that I think is more satisfying, but the version that we got is the one that is metatextually exciting, because it means that we're going to get another cool game with Leon in a couple of years. And I think that's just the way that this series is being thought of, especially as it's going forwards and it's bringing the back up to the future, because we're hearing even more concrete-ish rumors about the RE1 remake and the RE0 remake and the Code Veronica remake and all this shit. And I'm not saying this as in a cynical way. I'm just saying, or more cynical.
You're gonna play all those games, and you're gonna think they're pretty cool.
Or I guess rather not more cynical than is deserving. But it's just to say, like, of course Leon's fine. Like, of course that's the end of the game, and now Chris is here, and R810 is gonna be some fucking crazy thing.
The reason why, I mean, I ultimately agree with you, but I think that this game had a unique opportunity is that it's also one of the first Resident Evil games to really bring storylines truly forward. Like, we are done with the Umbrella arc, ostensibly. Like, Spencer's, the cure has been released. The T-virus is, like, out there in different forms, but, like, there is a cure for it. Leon is healthy again, but to the point of most of this game, Leon is dying. Like, it feels like a closing of a chapter of this first 9-game saga. And the fact that it's actually not, I'm like, damn. Like, I'm personally, I like legacy sequel stories. I like passing the torch to the next generation, shifting the tone a little bit, closing a chapter. I think for most of the game, I'm really feeling like, like, we're building to something that's going to be a satisfying end to an arc that I think that killing Leon would really have made this game feel like they're doing something with this narratively to close something off, and we're going to move on to the next chapter. But they didn't, and so the sagas just continue. And ultimately, I can't get that mad about it. I love this game. I'm going to enjoy future games more than likely. But I do think it's like slightly a missed opportunity of just like, there's still plenty of other iconic Resident Evil characters that are fine that you can make an action game with next time. Like, it's killing off Leon S. Kennedy. Like it's like the No Time to Die of Resident Evil games. I'm like, that would have been a little bit more like, okay, we really did something here. And the next one's gonna be fucking Chris, or it's gonna be Jill, or it's gonna be Claire. Like, you can do something.
Or a new character.
Like, yeah, of course.
I completely hear you. It's just like, Leon S. Kennedy's just not the type of character that dies. Like, it's just not. And like, I think that is I wonder if there's a version of I wonder if there's a pitch document out there from a couple years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Where it's like, and Leon gets killed at the end of the game. And in a heroic way. He goes out in a fucking crazy way, gets one final big set piece and one final quip, and then everybody's like mourning him.
And he's like, I guess everyone went to bingo, and they get shot in the head.
But I don't know. I ultimately am just happy that there will be more Leon, I guess. I that's also just part of what animates my perspective on this. Of like, I don't mind that the next core game will likely have him in it. But I think we had a really good conversation with the game. I think we've hit on it in ways that other people haven't, and I think that I'm just excited. I'm excited that I loved it as much as I did, and it's inspiring me to play more Resident Evil stuff. So
but that's the exact point I was trying to make at the beginning. Is I do think that there's two ways to read the variety, the approachability of this game. And one of them is, if you make a game that appeals to every part of the fan base, you're going to sell more copies because it's like, no matter if you're action or you're horror fan, like, you got something here, so you're going to go pick it up. Yeah. That's the cynical read of this. And I don't think that's totally unfair. I think that's why it's the best selling.
It's good business.
I think it's good business. But I also think that there's a different reading of the one I was positioning at the beginning of, this game has been, or the series has been decently fractured in terms of its appeal across many entries, across many years, and harmonizing that, I think is creatively interesting. And I think it creates a game that is unlike any other. It is a horror game, and it's also an action game in these discrete moments, and bounces back and forth between them. And it's again, it's first person and it's third person, and it's a new character and an old character. Like, it's balanced. And I think that is not easy to do. And why, like, this game could have easily felt super disjointed. It could have easily felt like throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. We're trying to appeal to the horror fans, trying to appeal to the action fans. But instead, I found a game that balances all these parts really well and creates a decently cohesive whole that I'm like, this is something special.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I just think ultimately my last note on it is, to your point, it's like, if it's a business decision, fine. If it's a fan service decision, fine. You're allowed to make a good business, fan service motivated decision if you make a fucking awesome game. And I think that they did.
Yeah, totally. All right, well, thank you everyone for watching. See you next time.